man, what the heck is he thinking? This is not really a blues solo. I mean, sure, there's some elements of blues. There's some bluesy licks. You recognize the pentatonic scale, but oh, gosh, this is more than blues. This was back in 1993. My friend Josh and I had picked up the guitar at the same time. Now, Josh was more of a blues rock player. I was more of a metalhead. And we used to jam together, exchange licks, information, things we'd find. Pretty basic stuff, but it was really fun. And one afternoon, after spending a few hours jamming together, my friend hands me this CD. She says, man, you gotta listen to this. I know you're a metal guy, but you gotta check this out. The album was Texas Flood by Stevie Ray Vaughan. Took it home, gave it a spin, and it's okay. I remember that at the time, like I said, I was a metalhead, so anything I listened to had kind of a bias. If it didn't have super heavy distortion, if it wasn't angry music, it was just okay. But I had promised my friend that I would listen to the whole thing, and I'm so glad I did, because the very last track, track number 10, I heard this. I didn't know at the time that that one listen of this song, Lenny, would really put me on a path of musical discoveries that really changed everything. Yeah, that track made a typical teenage hard rock wannabe into a true music fan, and I learned so much from that one track. Now, honestly, it was really weird that I was so fascinated by Lenny. First of all, it was pretty much clear tones. And again, at the time, I only listened to distortion. Lenny starts with a really clean, stratty type of sound. It kind of goes into some crunchier tones later on, but it's nothing super heavy like I used to listen to. But it really caught my attention. And so I listened to that track over and over and over. So I did what every guitar player does when he hears something that he wants to acquire in his own musicality. I started learning the song, trying to understand why I loved it so much so that I could reuse it. Now, at the time, I was really fresh into my journey as a guitar player. I had only been playing for about a year. I knew a few chords. I had the minor pentatonic scale under my belt. I knew a few songs. So my approach was to find the tabs and learn the song. Now, at the time, back in the 90s, the internet was kind of a new thing, and there were not as many tabs as you'd have today. So I couldn't find the tablatures for that song. My only chance was to hope that one of the guitar magazines that came out every month would cover that song, and you know, that never happens. So I took a different approach. I think Lenny was the first song that I transcribed on my own that year. Now, this turned out to be a very good approach because there's a lot of stuff that I discovered in this track that I would not have discovered by just looking at the tabs. Well, the first thing I did was to try to figure out the chords. It was a little challenging because I only knew my open chords, you know, traditional chords, 3 notes, triads, major, minor. My knowledge was not that refined, but I did recognize that most of the track only used 2 chords. Oh yeah, there's a little section that I guess you'd call maybe a chorus, something like that, with a few more chords, but honestly, most of it is just these 2 chords. And that was really weird because my attention span at the time was really short, and I liked music with a lot of changes, with a lot of parts, with a lot of notes. Lenny was different, yet it managed to really catch my attention. That meant that there was something else in this track that kept my attention. And it was that something that I was after. I really wanted to get this so that I could use that power in my own music to express myself. All right, so if the reason I was so intrigued by Lenny was not because of the complexity of the chord progression or the number of notes, it must have been the tone. So I kept listening to the track over and over and over, and then I realized that Stevie is not just playing with a clean tone. There's a lot of nuances in what I'm hearing. And those nuances are not the types of nuances that I was used to, you know, like pressing on an overdrive pedal or something like that. No, it was more than that. It was more subtle, but it was maybe more genuine, more alive. And because of the lack of knowledge at the time, I didn't realize that tone came from the fingers. I didn't really know what it meant. I had heard the phrase before, but it didn't really make any sense. To me, if you wanted to change the tone of your electric guitar, you use a multi-effect or a bunch of pedals or switch the channel of the amp or something like that. But I still perceived that change in tone in what I was hearing in that track. I didn't know how it was done, but I heard it, and that was really important. All right, so with that in mind, I continued digging into the track, trying to learn all those licks, trying to understand how Stevie was blending the rhythm with the lead. And that really taught me that guitar is not a matter of playing rhythm or lead. You can do both at the same time, and you don't need two guitar players, just like Hendrix would do, right? And it's no wonder that Lenny is heavily inspired by some of the work that Hendrix has done on his albums. I got pretty good at playing the song. It was recognizable, but it was nowhere near the delivery that I heard on Texas Flood, right, on that album. There's something missing. I didn't quite know what. The only clue that I had was that maybe it's the tone, yet I didn't know how to do it. Now, there are some things on guitar that take a long time to develop and mature, and this is one of those things. It actually took me years to finally understand what that missing piece was. So after a few months, I gave Josh his CD back and moved on to other things. You know, I played in bands, learned other songs, and went back to my heavier style of music. But yet Lenny was still kind of engraved in the back of my mind. It was still there resting, and I always kind of carried with me the experience that I had the first time I heard that song. Flash forward a few decades later, the internet is a thing now, and we have access to all these things that we didn't really have access back at the time. By now, I have more understanding of the guitar. I know a little bit better what it means to have tone in your fingers. I understand all the different sounds you can get by plucking the string differently, by playing a little bit with the volume, the tone, the attack, all those things I understand a little bit better now. And I decided to watch some footage of Stevie Ray playing Lenny. Man, what the heck is he thinking? This is not really a blues solo. I mean, sure, there's some elements of blues. There's some bluesy licks. You recognize the pentatonic scale, but oh, gosh, this is more than a blues solo. Stevie Ray is not playing guitar. He's feeling something. And that's what I perceived back in 1993 when I first heard Lenny. Does that mean that you can hear feelings? How did he do that? Now that answer came to me a few months after. See, I was playing with a band at the time, a cover band. We'd play every Saturday night. And on November 4th, 2006, I get a phone call. It's my fiance. We were planning to get married that summer. She canceled the whole thing. She had found someone else, and she just left me, just like that, on the phone. I was heartbroken. That was my high school sweetheart. We had been dating for 7 years. And I took it hard. But I don't know what pushed me to do it. I still showed up to the gig Saturday night. And man, my playing was different. And it was not just me perceiving my playing as different. It really did sound different because we were in the habit of recording every single gig. And when I heard that recording, I could hear it. I could hear those feelings that I had. My playing was more genuine, more alive. It communicated something that went beyond the choice of notes and beyond the pedals and the rig that I was using. Yes, it was all in the fingers, but it was not something that was consciously done. And that was the missing piece. See, back in the 90s when I heard Lenny, I was trying to replicate what I heard. And what I was missing back in the 90s when I was trying to figure out that thing was that emotions can be heard. And no, it's not a weird, wacky, philosophical type of thing. It's real. When you're feeling something, your whole body is in tune with that feeling, hopefully. And if it is, it's going to translate those feelings into what you're doing. It's very subtle as far as the movements go. When you're moving your fingers on the fretboard, if you're feeling something, The intonation, the way you vibrate a string, the pressure you put on the string is at a micro level, yet it's going to scream to the listener if you have some feeling attached to what you're playing. And that's why most people resonate with the blues. The best blues musicians are those who communicate something that is felt by them to the audience. That got me thinking, because I'm not always heartbroken, thankfully. So how can I communicate some feelings when I'm playing, when I'm happy or excited or scared or nervous? And I'm only saying that because I feel that it's easier for me to express sad feelings than happy ones. Thankfully, it doesn't have to be that way. And there's one player who taught me how to express those feelings regardless of how you're feeling. And that player is Buddy Guy. Click this video to discover how to do it.